Have you ever noticed how incredibly satisfying it is to just fix a broken pipe? You know, you walk into a room, you see the leak, you grab a wrench, and you tighten the bolt. The water stops.
Oh, yeah. It is purely binary. Broken, then fixed.
Right. Our brains absolutely love that kind of resolution. We are practically wired to hunt for immediate solutions the second a problem appears. But then someone sits down across from you, maybe it's a student or a colleague or a friend, and they just drop a deeply complex, traumatizing emotional disclosure right in your lap.
And suddenly your wrench is completely useless.
Exactly. In fact, relying on that instinct to just fix it can actually cause some profound damage. So today we are doing a deep dive into a really unconventional approach to those exact moments,
Yeah, we're looking at a fascinating document titled, What a DSL Can Learn From a Funeral Director. Sitting with the uncomfortable.
which sounds intense, I know. Just to
Well,
clarify, DSL stands for Designated Safeguarding Lead. Those are the professionals in educational or organizational settings whose literal job is to handle child protection and, manage complex, emotionally charged disclosures.
right. And the core mission of this deep dive is to explore how the emotional discipline of a funeral director can completely revolutionize how safeguarding professionals, and really how any of us, handle deeply uncomfortable, unresolved situations.
Because funeral directors work in moments that most people instinctively avoid, right? Grief, loss, raw human pain.
They don't rush it, they don't try to remove the pain, and they certainly don't pretend it isn't there. They just stay in it.
They stay. Okay, let's unpack this. Because making the leap from don't fix it to actual practical application is where things get really tough. We are so conditioned to be emotional firefighters.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, like when a student or a parent brings us distress, our instinct is to grab the heavy hose and put the fire out immediately. But
Like,
this source is telling us to just stand in the smoke.
and standing in the smoke requires going against almost every conversational instinct we have. Discomfort isn't a sign that something is wrong, though we usually treat it like one.
Like a red flag that we need to steer the ship back to safe waters.
Precisely. But in the context of a safeguarding disclosure, discomfort is actually a sign that something important is finally being addressed.
There's this visual from the source text that really sticks with me. It's a man in a dark suit and white gloves holding a red rose and a white chrysanthemum, and he's just embracing someone.
Yes, that illustrates the first core insight perfectly sitting with discomfort. It brings in what the text calls the funeral director principle.
Which means not filling the silence too quickly, right? Because silence can be agonizing. If a student is sitting in an office crying, silence feels like a vacuum that demands to be filled.
Oh, absolutely.
I know my first reflex is to start babbling, offering platitudes, just to break the heavy tension in the room.
But we babble to soothe ourselves, not the person in front of us. We want to say the perfect words to make the pain disappear. In safeguarding, this means realizing that presence matters infinitely more than words.
It shifts the priority entirely. Your physical presence communicates that their pain is safe with you.
Right, the funeral director principle allows silence, emotion, and space. Rushing to a platitude like, "We will figure this out right now," might feel nice for the professional to say.
But to the person whose world has just collapsed, it feels highly dismissive. So let's put this directly in the room. Let's say you are a designated safeguarding lead.
Okay.
A teenager sits in your office and reveals something horrific happening at home. Your heart rate spikes. The urge to immediately say, "We are going to call the police, please don't cry," is overwhelming.
It's a very natural human reaction to want to stop the bane.
But if you aren't fixing the problem with words, how do you keep the situation from spiraling into total chaos? This brings up the text's second and third core insights about professional composure.
Funeral directors remain calm, steady, and respectful even when everyone around them is panicking.
But wait, I have to push back on this a little bit. If a student is disclosing a terrifying experience, isn't it unnatural to just sit there completely measured?
How do you mean?
Well, doesn't a controlled tone of voice run the risk of sounding cold or robotic?
Yeah.
If I'm pouring my heart out and the person across from me is completely stoic, I am going to feel alienated, not supported.
What's fascinating here is the underlying psychology of why composure works. It fundamentally creates stability in unstable moments. Think of composure as the creation of a safe container.
A safe container.
Right.
Yeah.
If someone comes to you in absolute chaos and you respond with panic, visible distress, or heightened emotional mirroring like gasping or crying with them, what have you just communicated to them?
That their situation really is as terrifying as they thought.
Exactly. You've confirmed that their situation is unmanageable. You haven't validated their fear, you have amplified it. Safeguarding isn't about solving the unsolvable immediately.
It's a leadership shift from asking, how do I solve this, to asking, how do I support safely through this?
Yes. The composure isn't coldness, it is a safe container for the other person's chaos. Your steady voice tells them, what you are telling me is horrific, but I am strong enough to hold it. You haven't broken the room.
You haven't broken the room. Wow. That is a powerful distinction, because if the adult in the room shatters, the kid realizes they are entirely alone.
If the safeguarding lead panics, they become a secondary stressor. The steady, composed presence is actually the most deeply empathetic thing you can offer because it provides stability.
So you act as an anchor in the middle of their storm. But what happens when the meeting ends? The door closes, the student leaves, and you are left holding all that heavy, traumatic information.
This is where the unseen toll of the work comes in. It transitions us to the boundaries required to sustain this profession.
Which makes me think of the second image from the source. It's a dark, quiet hallway looking out into a modern, brightly lit room with a pedestal. It visually represents holding space and the quiet, unseen nature of the work.
That ties right into core insights 5 and 6. Funeral directors are compassionate but not overwhelmed. They maintain professional distance.
It's like a power grid. A safeguarding lead is essentially a backup generator, providing emergency power to a hospital during a blackout. They keep critical systems running.
That's a great analogy.
But if that single generator tries to power the entire city block, it catches fire, the grid collapses, and now nobody has power.
You have to care deeply without losing professional clarity. Over-involvement in safeguarding is incredibly risky. You cannot become the sole emotional support.
Right. If you start giving out your personal phone number or checking in at all hours, you burn out completely.
And you actually compromise the safeguarding process itself. Professional distance isn't being aloof, it's preserving your capacity to make unbiased decisions. The most profound safeguarding work is often invisible.
It really is quiet and unrecognized, yet it has a massive long-term impact. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh.
Because a metaphor is only as good as its limits. Why is a DSL not actually a funeral director? The text points out a critical difference here.
This raises an important question. It's the difference between action and presence.
Right, because a funeral director works after an event to provide closure. The worst thing has already happened.
But a DSL works during evolving situations to protect from ongoing harm. The listener needs to understand this vital distinction so they don't mistake holding space for inaction.
Because you can't just peacefully stand by while the metaphorical building burns down around you.
Yeah.
You can't just say, don't mind me, I'm just holding space for the fire.
Which would obviously be catastrophic. Safeguarding is not passive. While you must sit with discomfort in the room, you must also intervene once the conversation concludes.
So the emotional posture in the room is calm and measured, but the professional responsibility outside the room is highly active.
Exactly. Process matters, but outcomes matter too. The DSL provides limited emotional intervention but active safeguarding responsibility to stop the source of the harm.
So taking these individual skills and scaling them up to an entire organizational system, how do we build an actual culture of composure?
The text outlines the application to pastoral systems. If we connect this to the bigger picture, leaders have to ask a systemic question.
Are your staff equipped to sit with difficult safeguarding moments, or do they feel the need to resolve them too quickly?
Right. And the text breaks this down into 3 layers. First is foundations, which is about safety and care, ensuring staff feel supported.
Then there are developmental pathways, focusing on well-being literacy.
Which is such a brilliant concept. It involves teaching everyone to understand and process their own emotions without immediately pathologizing them.
And finally, leadership and professional capability. Leaders have to provide actual training in managing difficult conversations and provide support for their staff's own well-being.
A strong culture trains staff in these moments. A system cannot demand its staff hold the emotional weight of others if the system itself isn't holding the staff.
I want to ask you, listening to this deep dive right now, to evaluate your own environments. Whether you are leading a team, teaching a class, or just supporting a friend.
Are you creating a culture of well-being literacy?
Yeah, where people can process emotions without needing immediate forced resolutions. Let's look back at the core journey of our deep dive today.
The funeral director doesn't remove the pain. They hold it, respect it, and support others through it.
And safeguarding, or really any profound human support, demands that exact same discipline. The source leaves us with a really powerful question to carry forward.
Which is?
In difficult moments, am I trying to fix too quickly, or am I providing the steady presence that is actually needed?
And to leave you with a final provocative thought that builds on the text. If discomfort is simply a sign that something deeply important is being addressed, how much vital information in our schools, our workplaces, and our own personal relationships are we completely missing just because we are too busy rushing to fix the silence?